Mini enthusiasts, how are you doing? Welcome back. I hope you're having a great day and I hope you're all well. In today's video, we're going to fit some genuine Timken front wheel bearings in the front hubs. And we're going to do it pretty much in real time. I often get asked if I can do some stuff in real time. So this is how I fit genuine Timken bearings. Right then, let's do these front wheel bearings. So I thought I'd show while I'm doing this. So a few things quite important. So you would have seen me paint up and clean up these hubs. So they're ready to go on, or they will be soon. We've got these swivels in there. Where I've painted it, you just need to go round and make sure there's no paint where the bearing races are going to go in. So I've just scraped that out. And make sure none of the surface is damaged where you've got to press or bang the bearing race down into, because where you punch it out you can damage the side of there. If you do damage it, just dress it up, clean it up, make sure it's okay. And I've also gone round and scraped off the paint on the sort of mating surfaces where the brake caliper bolts on, just to make sure there's no paint interfering with the alignment. So there's our front hubs. Now we've got our bearing kit, slightly different box that I'm used to, but it's a genuine Timken bearing. Timken bearings are the best. They are more expensive, so they work out with the VAT at around about 60 to 65 pound per side, per set. And that's quite more expensive than the non-genuine ones, but trust me, the non-genuine ones are rubbish. You might get lucky with them now and again, but I see so many non-genuine ones fail that it is worth investing in a set of Timken bearings because they are much better, and I'll explain why. If you love your Mini, spend a few quid on it and get some Timken bearings. Basically, the Timken bearings are matched, so the whole bearing set is produced as a matched set. They're not just off-the-shelf bearings put together. The tolerances are very, very fine with them. They get torqued up very tight, and they rely on this spacer in the middle and these bearings to be matched to make sure the gap and the free play in the bearing is correct, and that it's not too tight and not too loose. So that's why they're a machine set. You don't mix them up either side, so each bearing casing goes with the bearing itself, each bearing race, and the whole set will be marked. It will be given a number, so it's 1168, and you can just check them. This will be marked 1168, and this bearing will be marked 1168 as well. So as I say, they are a match set. It doesn't matter front or back, they can go in either way. They're not handed inside or outside, but the seals are, so that's quite important. So the front seal is just flat. The rear seal, and by rear I mean it goes up towards the CV joint, has an extra lip on it, and it has this plastic washer which actually fits inside the lip on the rubber bearing there, and that fits on the shaft for the CV joint. So that's quite important to get that way round. Now, one observation I've made, so everything comes here in the kit. I've got my old bearings there, which don't know if you can see that. Timken, made in England. God, it makes you feel proud, doesn't it? Made in England with English metal, no doubt. The new Timken bearings, this one says France. And this one in the middle says USA. And the packaging says printed in the USA. So the bearing case says France on it, the bearing itself says USA, and the bearings say the instructions say they're printed in the USA. So I'm not sure they're so English anymore. Tools wise, a hammer. It's worth investing in one of these driver sets. So this is a bearing and seal driver. So if you've ever got to put one of these bushes or seals in, you will have in here an appropriate sized drift to put the bearing in, and it'll put them in without damaging them. You can, if you've got access to a press, it's a much better way of putting bearings in rather than bashing them in. But using a driver set like this is again much better than using a hammer and punch and tapping around the edge. This is a Blue Point set. It would have cost me loads of money in the olden days. Snap-on Blue Point's always expensive stuff, but you can get these from eBay now for 10-15 quid. You can get a set. So if you're going to spend that much on your bearings and you love your Mini, invest in the right tool to do it, and you can do loads of things with these tools as well. And these are much better because they're made from alloy. This will be much softer than the bearing race. So when you're pressing it in or when you're hammering it in, the only bit you're going to damage is this. It's going to be sacrificial. You're not going to damage the bearing itself. Where if you're using like a hammer and a punch to put the bearing in, the punch will be hardened steel, and you could damage the bearing. So that's my advice. Spend a few extra quid and get the right tool to do it at the same time. So like I say, first thing, really important, make sure where you're inserting the bearing is clean. There's no chips on it, scratches, dents, anything like that. And then it's pretty straightforward. So like I say, the bearings are not sided, sort of inside and outside, but they are matched, so you need to keep them together. So this bearing race goes with this bearing, so don't get them confused. For the moment, we don't need to worry about the bearing race. But if you lay everything out nicely, you won't forget. So that's my back end, that's the CV boot end, and that's the front end. So first thing to do is find one of these kind of dies which fits the bearing. Sometimes they'll fit inside that bearing race as well, but on this one it doesn't. So it just goes on the outside. So we'll just get it started. Sometimes you might find you just need to give it a very gentle few taps just to get started with the hammer before you start using the driver. Very important, it should be an interference fit. By interference fit means the bearing race or the bearing casing is bigger than the hub itself, so you should have to press it in or punch it in. If it just goes in easily and it's loose, you've got a problem there, and it might be that your hub's worn out. So you don't have to go mad with it, but you will have to tap it in, and we want to keep tapping until the noise changes. You'll hear when it's fully home, when it's hit the bottom. And also make sure you get it in the right way round. Obviously the bearing's got to go in, it's tapered, so make sure you don't fit it the wrong way round. And we're just listening for the change of tone now. That was about as distinctive as you're going to get. You could really hear the change of tone there. And if you look down inside now, you should be able to see that the bearing itself is fully seated down on this bottom lip. I will just give it a couple of more taps just to make sure. So that's the one side bearing casing in. Now we move over to the other side. Again, quick visual inspection, make sure it's gone fully home, which it has. That's all looking very good. Next bit, we need to fit the bearings themselves, and we need to give them a bit of a grease up. Now, I would highly recommend, just because we've been tapping down in there, we want to just give that bearing casing a quick wipe around just to make sure there's no debris has gone into there. Just like that. And now we need to take our bearing, again remembering not to mess them up, so back end, back bearing. We get 20 ml of grease. And this is a bit messy, this is. You need to really get this bearing really nicely greased up and get it right inside all the roller bearings within there. Sometimes if you cut the packet neatly, you can sort of form a little nozzle so you can almost inject it into the bearing. So remembering that that's got to go across 2 bearings. And then this bit, like I say, it's just messy. You've got to force all that grease inside the bearing, sort of press it in, get messy. One day I'll do the bag method, which is to put the grease in the bag and then put the bearing in the bag with the grease and do it all in there, and you don't get as messy. Rotate it at the same time, force it in. You want to be able to make sure, yeah, it's all losing out now. We'll put a little bit more grease in at the moment, again remembering not to mix them up. I wouldn't recommend using any more grease than they give you, because you can overpack a bearing. You can put too much grease in there. It just makes a mess. So if they give you 20 mil or 20 grams, whatever it was, that must be enough. Again, really take your time, work it in really well, because once these are in, they're not easy to re-grease unless you're going to take it all apart again. Right, so we've got a bit more grease just in the packet. So now we're actually going to fit that rear bearing. A bit more in for good measure. Just give it, it's packed nicely, the bearing now, so now we can just give it a nice smear around the outside. Lovely jubbly. Place our bearing in. Now, we'll change gloves quickly. Now what you should have as well from the old bearing is there should have been a ring in the back. This ring is about 3 millimeters deep, and it's only there to space out that oil seal or grease seal at the back there. So if you haven't got this, if this is missing, you just need to make sure you space out this grease seal by the same sort of 3 millimeters. It's not there to hold the bearing in, it is just there to space out that grease seal. So that's our spacer in. Let's make sure we got the right bit on here. Could we do the slightly bigger one? Yeah, maybe. This grease seals, you shouldn't have to bang them in hard, and it is easy to damage these if you're using punches. And then obviously that back one, it only goes as far in as the that spacer ring. Don't forget that part, it's probably going to fall out as we're putting in the front bearing, but that has to go on the CV joint first. And then, as you can see, goes up against that outer grease seal there. Just moving on to the front. Now this is very important. Don't forget this spacer ring. And again, this is a machine engineered part. It's a matched set, goes with these bearings. So that goes in between the two bearings. If you forget that, it is game over. You have killed your bearings. They will be dead bearings and they won't last very long at all. So front grease seal, or sorry, front bearing. Just get the last dregs out this grease packet. And then finally, front grease seal. Let's just tap it in from the outside. Now this grease seal here just goes flush with the hub itself. And that is us done. That's our new bearing set in there. Like I say, don't forget the plastic washer at the back. Make sure you get the spacer in the middle. And now that's ready to go back on the car. We'll wrap that up in something because it's obviously greasy now. We don't want it attracting dust or anything like that. And I just need to get the other side fitted up now. Thanks for watching.